Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Okay, so when I was little, I was about, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years old, and I went down to the south part of Texas where my grandma lives. And my grandma was really, she was old, and I went with my family to stay with her, visit her in the summer. And I was always scared of her house. I was always seeing things and hearing things, and she would tell me stories of things she would see. And I just thought, that at first when she would tell me, I thought, okay, she's just old and she's hearing and seeing things and they're not really there. But then I started seeing and hearing things like, that were scary, like babies crying in the middle of the night. I would see, shadows and, hear like walking and things moving. And I was just scared of her house. And one of the reasons why I was scared of her house is because my uncle passed away, and he lived with her, and he had a room there that she just left intact. She never um, took anything out. She left all his clothes in the closet, and posters that were hanging on the wall. And it was just scary to me. But one night, we for whatever reason, I haven't even asked my mom why, but we wouldn't stay there at night. We would go with my grandma, my mom. At this particular time, I remember was I don't even know where my dad was, but it was my grandma, my mom, and we were going to go stay with my uncle. And he just lived like you cross, like a big field, and it was my grandma's house, and it was my uncle's house, one of my uncle's houses, and then you went through this little alleyway, and then you ended up in the backyard of my other uncle's house where we were walking to at night. And it wasn't even that dark yet. Like the sun was setting. It was in the evening, and we were leaving. And so my mom there was like a little porch area. My mom was trying to lock the front door, and she tells me, "Can you go look in your uncle's room and make sure that I put the windows down, that they're down in case it rains or something?" And I was like, okay, and I walked off the porch, went around through the front of or right in front of the porch, and I just kind of peeked in. And when I peeked in, the windows were down, but I could still see through the curtains. And when I looked in, I saw this. It was like a ball, and it was like a big glowing ball. I mean, it wasn't just like light. It was very lit up, and it looked like a ball of fire or something, like orangey red. And then I just saw it move from one side of the room and just really fast across the room towards the living room, like where my mom was standing at locking the front door. And at that time, I just got this weird feeling, like I froze in fright and goosebumps all over me. And I just stood there completely frozen. I started freaking out. I started crying. And my mom comes running to me, and she's hugging me, and she's like, "What happened? What happened?" And I couldn't even talk to her. I was just still crying. And then finally, she calmed me down. We walk over to my aunt's house, and I remember they gave me like a glass of like salt water that I was supposed to drink, supposedly to because I got frightened so bad that I had to have this salt water um, to kind of help with that. And then I was finally able to talk to her, and I told her what I saw. And she just kind of looked at me, and she's like, "Oh, you're seeing things." And it wasn't until way later as an adult that we talked about that incident. And she told me that she didn't want to tell me this at the time because of how scared I got. But she also got just as scared because at the same time that I was, screaming and crying, that she also froze up because she heard clear as day footsteps. Not really like footsteps, but more like stomping She heard stomps coming from the direction of my uncle's room towards the front door. And she said she even like fumbled with the keys trying to like put them in and lock it. And that she had to lock it real quick before she came running to me because she didn't know if somebody was in there trying to come out or what was going on. And so, yeah, there was some other things that happened at my grandma's house, but I think more of it was just me being scared of the stories that she would tell me, the things that she would see, especially like outside, and she would hear like cats meowing by her window and lights all the time. And so I was just always scared to stay there. Whenever we would go, I would like to stay with my cousins and things like that. I was just scared. And then um, my mom, she ended up keeping that house after my grandma passed away, but not very long. She sold it. But that's just one of my stories. I have a lot of other stories that have happened in different places that maybe I'll tell more, but that's one of the first ones that I remember that really scared me.